Yeah. So I'm Janice, and this is my peer Letty, and we are the fourth year speech pathology student from the University of Sydney. And thank you for participating in today's meeting. And I'm sure that you had a really wonderful meeting with Jody and Alex last week and have known more about what language is. And today we are here to have a presentation about children's speech sounds. You might have a question in your mind, what are speech sounds? That's a really good question. So in the following hour, we are going to tell you more about it. Before the presentation, we acknowledge the tradition of custodianship and the law of the country on which the University of Sydney campuses stand, as well as the land on which our campuses are located. We pay our respects to those who are cared and continues to care for country. And before starting the presentation, we have a question for you. What does speech mean to you? And I'm going to put this link on our chat so that you can put your idea. You can put your idea on there.
Yes, I think the QR code was something not many of us could access last time, but the link, we can all do that. So thanks for doing that.
Yep, I've already put the link on the chat. Oh, there are some responses here. Understand others, great. Yep, we use our speech to communication, making sounds. Yep, communication to clearly express the ideas. Yep, connection and listen to others talk, expressions. Yeah, we use our mouth to talk, to express our speech. Yeah, understanding sounds. Yeah, we are going to talk more about speech sounds today.
And we've got a few in the chat. So access to so many things the world has to offer us, thoughts, feelings to articulate.
Yep. Can see that many of you have really good understanding of what speech is. Yeah, and I'm going to talk more about it. Okay. So speech is a really broad idea and we express our thoughts, feelings, and ideas orally to other people through our speech. And speech is also how we use the sounds to convert our ideas into words and sentences. Speech is made up of the sounds, and it is one of the main ways that we communicate with people. We begin communicating from the moment we are born, letting our mothers know we have arrived with our first cry. As a child develops, it is important we nurture their communication skills so that they are capable of expressing themselves clearly, confidently in all aspects and areas of their life. Communication is also the foundation of relationship and is essential for learning, play, and social interaction. Children who is good at communicating verbally will find it easier to produce written communications and will likely perform better in their school exams. Written assignments and also indicates that speech development is an important part of learning. When a person learns to speak correctly at early age, they are more likely to comprehend reading and writing more easily. And there are many ways that we can help the child develop proper speech patterns and language skills. So we produce speech step by step, and speech development is a really complex process involving a child's mental representation of language sound system, for example, how we hear and how we detect the sounds, and also the production of individual speech sounds, like how we think and how we organize what we are going to say. and also the ability to sequence movement of the articulators, because we use our tongue, our lips, our teeth to produce speech. You might also wonder, how do children start to talk? Learning to speak is a relatively literal process. Children hear their parents communicating with them and others, and absorb this speech through observation. Children communicate with sounds and vocalization from birth, begin with early, involuntary sounds and develops into mature sequences of movements. So how do children start to talk? Typically, developing children begin to show influences of ambient language on their own productions during the first year of life before they say their first real words. When exposed to speech, children with normal hearing learn to listen, vocalize the sounds, begin to babble, start to imitating speech, develop an understanding of speech and language, and produce words. So you may wonder, what is vocalization? I've mentioned vocalization is the first stage of children's speech production, and children make a lot of noise. For example, crying, cooing, and giggling. From as early as 4 months, children start to vocalize intentionally to communicate their wants and needs. Early on, children make sounds together with gesture and facial expressions. And children listen to ambient language so spontaneously and attempt to produce sound patterns that match what they hear. At the endpoint of this stage, they will sound like a native speaker of their language. And from 6 months onward, most children start to babble and make funny combination of sounds. And now I'm going to play a video about vocalization.
So you might need to share your audio.
Yeah, I was just about to say.
Okay. Sorry, just give me a second.
So you might need to reshare and
Yep.
choose that computer.
Yep. So you can see from the video, the baby is producing some sounds, but we have no idea what she is talking about. And then babbling is the second stage of speech development after a newborn stage of crying. When a child aged around 6 months to 1.5 years begins to make individual sounds like ma 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 and ba ba ba. It's a practice for speech, which is an important skill, not only requiring hundreds of muscles to work together, but also the coordination of breathing, voice, and articulation. And children make these easy sounds because they don't have teeth, which is unnecessary for making sounds. At this stage, children are just starting to control their facial and tongue muscles. No wonder why the word for mother in most language begins with the m sounds, because it's one of the easiest sounds for children to produce, and is a pretty important word. As children continues to develop, their babbling begins to sound more and more like a conversation. So I have a video so that it can give you a picture how babbling sound like. So you can hear from the video, the baby said ba ba ba. And the speech milestone can be achieved in a number of ways and in a number of orders. And there are no set for which a child must be able to show a particular sign of normal communication. But there are guidelines such as speech milestones, and it is important to monitor the milestone for many reasons, so that we can identify whether or not a child is achieving normal speech development milestone, or how severe the delay or the disorder is if one appears. It also helps parents and medical professions determine whether the abnormal condition is a speech disorder or a language disorder. So like what I've mentioned, babies start to vocalize intentionally to express their wants and needs from birth to 5 months, and they start to make a lot of sounds. And from 6 months, they start to have symbol babbling. So it begins with single syllable speech sounds like ba, da, and ma. And life get noisy as they squeal and yell. And then they will have with duplicated babbling. It will sound like baba or nana. And sometimes we heard the baby say mama, but actually they are not really calling their mother. Towards the end of this stage, with increased coordination and control of their mouth, babies say the same syllable over and over, like ba 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 ba. And after that, children start to mix different sounds together, like ba di da. And they also attempt to imitate noises produced by objects. For example, if you build them a block tower and lock it down, they might say boom. And at around 12 to 17 months, children start to imitate simple words. At 18 to 23 months, children start to make animal sounds. For example, moo. At 2 to 3 years old, children's speech is becoming more accurate, but may still leave some ending sounds. At 3 to 4 years old, children may still have some speech errors. For example, s, sh, ch. This sound may not be fully mastered until age 7 to 8. At 4 to 5 years old, children can say all speech sounds with some errors. At 5 to 6 years old, children can say most of the sound clearly and easy to understand, but may still notice some of the errors. For example, and th. At around 6 plus, children should be able to say all the speech sounds in the words with no noticeable errors. Again, children acquire speech sounds at different ages, and although many children say all the sounds of English by the time they are 4 years old, and some children might take longer and don't master all of the sounds, particularly until they are 8 years old. We know that most of your volunteering works are targeting school-age students, so we are going to talk more about it. School-age students, usually 6 plus, their speech is intelligible. That means it's easy to understand and clear to hear what they say. And also, they are able to produce most of the consonants. Some consonants like s and are usually the latest consonant to be acquired. And they are also able to produce all syllable shapes in English. For example, the word boy is a 1-syllable word, and the word chocolate is a 3-syllable word. Children will learn and say different sounds at different stages, and some of the sounds are easier to produce. Some of the sounds like b and w are identified as early sounds, and sounds like t and k are identified as middle sound. Finally, the most hardest sounds to produce are s and and those sounds will be considered as late sounds. We always thought bilingual children's speech development is always less advanced than monolingual children's. That's not totally correct. Milestones for pre-language development are the same in all languages. Like other children, most bilingual children speak their first word by age 1. And many studies have actually indicated that the speech production skills of bilingual children are equal to their monolingual peers. So it's actually a common misconception that bilingual children would have worse speech development. And next, I will hand over to Natalie, and she is going to tell you more about speech sound disorder.
Hi everyone, my name is Natalie and I hope you guys have been enjoying the presentation so far. So we have just gone through what typical speech development looks like. This portion of the presentation will look at disordered speech, which is often referred to as a speech sound disorder. So children typically produce intelligible speech by simply listening to people around them talk. When we say intelligible speech, we mean speech that is easily understood, where the sounds are clear and properly produced. Toddlers and young children typically produce speech errors when they speak. And I'm sure if anyone has ever been around young children, you can hear their speech isn't yet adult-like. It's quite immature sounding. However, by the age of 4, children should be mostly understood by an unfamiliar listener, so a stranger. And by 9 years old, they should sound relatively adult-like. So what is speech sound disorder? In a very simple and brief definition, it's basically when children do not say sounds correctly by the expected age. So Janice previously mentioned that some sounds are learnt before others. If a sound is expected by a certain age and the child still can't produce it, then this is a speech sound error. If a child isn't yet expected to produce the sound and therefore has difficulties when trying to produce it, this is a typical error and nothing of concern. Now, of course, as with everything, children are all different and there can be some variation in the rate of developing some sounds. However, there are rough guidelines as to when children should be able to produce specific sounds. And if they are well out of these, then they are considered speech errors. So speech sound disorder occurs mostly in preschoolers. In a study conducted, 25% of parents of 4-year-old children had concerns of their child's speech. When assessed, 20% of these children had a speech sound disorder. Unfortunately, at least 1 to 2 preschoolers in every classroom would have a speech sound disorder, making it fairly common. With bilingual or multilingual children who have speech sound disorders, we can typically expect that any speech errors they make in one language, they will also make in any other language they speak. For example, if a child has a lisp in English, it is likely they will also have a lisp in any other language they speak. Now, when we talk about speech sound errors, we have 2 main types that come to mind. These are phonological errors and articulation errors, and we'll be talking a little bit more about those today. Phonological disorders are the most common type of speech sound disorder. They occur when the child has difficulties learning the sound system or the patterns of sound in a language. It is a simplification of the sound system that affects intelligibility, but does not mean the child cannot physically produce the sound. In their mind, the particular sound either doesn't exist or is represented by another sound. And we'll get into that a little bit more. So phonological processes are characterized by predictable rule-based errors that affect more than one sound. Some of these processes are typical at young ages and should be outgrown by a certain age, where others are only heard in children with a phonological disorder. Here are some examples of typical phonological processes or phonological errors. Most children have these when they are young and eventually outgrow it. For example, final consonant deletion. That's when a child does not say the final sounds of a word. So instead of saying house, they will say how. And instead of saying bat, they will say bat. By 3.5, this should no longer be occurring. Fronting is when a k or a g sound, which are sounds that are made at the back of the throat, is replaced with a t or a d sound, which are the sounds made with the front of the mouth. For example, instead of saying key, a child would say tea. And instead of saying gate, a child would say date. This should also be gone by about 3.5. Stopping is another one, and it's when long sounds such as s, sh, or v are replaced with short stop sounds, such as t or d. So a child with stopping would say T instead of C, and ban instead of van. This process sometimes takes a little longer to leave, up to about 4.5 years. And finally, one that's probably quite familiar to all of you if you've spent time with children would be gliding. And that's when the L and R sounds are replaced with W and Y sounds. So a child would say wabbit instead of rabbit, or yellow instead of yellow. And this should stop happening at about 5 years of age. So these processes are typical of young children. However, if they're not outgrown by roughly the ages I've mentioned, then a speech assessment and possibly intervention is recommended. Some processes that we shouldn't really see at all in children are initial consonant deletion, where a child does not say the first sound in a word. For example, a child would say E instead of B, or at instead of sat. And as you could imagine, this would make it very difficult to understand a child. It would really impact their intelligibility. And backing is another atypical process. It is the opposite to fronting. So it's where sounds, the front sounds such as t or d, are replaced by k and g, which are the back sounds, the back throat sounds. So a child who fronts would say key instead of t, and gate instead of date. So basically, that's a really quick explanation of phonological speech sound disorders and a few different types of phonological processes or speech errors. The next type of speech sound disorder is called an articulation disorder. Articulation is when sounds, syllables, and words are formed when the tongue, jaw, teeth, lips, and palate alter the airstream coming from the vocal folds. And each articulator has its own role in speech production. The tongue needs to be in a certain position, the lips need to be in a certain position, the jaw needs to be opened a certain amount to make a certain sound. And this again changes with words and once again with sentences. And as you can imagine, they need to be moving and coordinating quite quickly when we speak in sentences in order to produce clear, intelligible speech. So basically, the articulators need to work together in order to produce speech. Articulation disorders focus on production of individual speech sounds. Usually the speech sounds are distorted. So an example of an articulation disorder would be a lisp. And I'll just play an example of what a lisp would look like.
One, two, three, four, five, six, 7, and 8, 10.
Good. Now let's go up to 20.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. One, two, three, four,
5, 6, 7, and 8, 10.
Good. Now let's go up to 20.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
So Here we can see that her S sound is distorted because she's putting her tongue too far forward. And when we produce the S sound, our tongue is in our mouth behind our teeth. We can see her tongue popping out past her teeth, which is why she has a lisp. The articulators here aren't moving correctly. In a nutshell, that's basically what an articulation disorder is. Here's an unfortunate fact that will hopefully make it seem worthwhile helping children in the classroom with speech sound disorders. Children with speech sound disorders are more likely to have reduced educational, so for example, difficulties with reading, and social outcomes in comparison to typically developing children. Their speech sound disorders affect their confidence and participation in classroom learning experiences. These children won't be confident enough to participate in class like their other peers, and they are likely to have difficulties reading in future, which is incredibly upsetting and unfortunate as it will impact their ability to learn. They may also have difficulty making and maintaining friendships. They may face bullying. They may have a lower self-esteem, and it is likely they will not enjoy school as much as their peers without speech sound disorder. But there are a few things we can do to try and alleviate that difficulty these children go through in the classroom. Some tips to help if you do encounter these children in the classroom. Encourage students to participate and have a go. Keep an eye on their participation in class. Be sure to observe if they are avoiding participation and report this to the classroom teacher. Assist parents in identifying the need for speech pathology intervention. And this is important as speech pathologists are trained to help children with speech sound disorders. And all these concerns should be raised and flagged with the classroom teacher so that they can have those chats with parents if necessary. Some other strategies include modeling or repeating the correct word to a child. So for example, if a child says tar instead of car, you could say, yes, it's a car. It's a blue car. It's a fast blue car. Here, there is no expectation for the child to repeat the word. They're just listening to its correct adult production a few times. Ask the child to listen to certain sounds in words. For example, if a child says tar for car, you could say, yes, it's a car. Car has a k sound. Can you hear it? Car. Here, it's important to focus on the letter sounds, not the letter names. So say the k sound instead of saying K. Another strategy would be to do awareness activities. For example, if a child replaces k with t, you could go on a sound hunt for things that start with k in the classroom. So as mentioned, here are some examples of what the sound awareness activities could look like. Just apply these to the classroom instead of home.
Hi, it's Jessie from Lakeshore, and I have 2 quick letter sound activities to share with you today. Each of these activities is easy to do at home, and they're sure to keep your kids engaged and learning. For these activities, you will just need paper and something to write with. During this first activity, you will be going on an alphabet scavenger hunt in your house. Work together to find objects in your house that start with each letter of the alphabet. Be sure to record your answers as you go. During the second activity, you will be practicing rhyming. Write the word fun across the top of a sheet of paper. Now, have your child make a list of as many words as they can think of that rhyme with the word fun. When they are finished, read the list together and add any additional words you may know that they didn't list. Be sure to define any of the words that your child may not be familiar with. I hope you enjoyed these quick learning activities. Check out lakeshorelearning.com.
So those are a few tips you could use around the classroom for children who have sound difficulties. I'll play a video that will go through a few more of the speech errors and will give an example of what speech modeling also looks like when children produce words and sounds incorrectly.
Hi there, I'm Emma and I'm one of the speech and language therapists working over at South Tees. I've recorded this short video just to share with you what we mean when we talk about speech modelling. So as children are developing speech, they will not have all of the speech sounds needed to produce all words clearly and accurately. Some children might do some quite typical things, so they might miss sounds from the end of a word. They might say something like dot for dog or book for book. They might reduce the length of longer words, so they might say something like Bella for umbrella. They might say something like Ebba for elephant. They could exchange one speech sound for another, so they might say book for butt or bi for fish, or something like rabbit for rabbit.
We need you to go back.
The wolf. How many wolves?
1, 2, 3, 4, 9.
4.
What's really, really important when children have speech sound immaturities is that we offer a clear adult speech model so that the child is able to hear the right way to say that word. Goodbye, Spider. See you in the morning, Spider. Oh, that was nice. One more. One more blueberry.
2 more blueberries.
2 more blueberries.
That is Red Riding Hood. And this is the wolf. How many
So
wolves?
I hope you found this video useful. Just to add really that this is a strategy that can be used at any age and stage of speech development. If your child is receiving direct therapy, we will offer further guidance and support as to how you can develop a particular speech sound. But with speech modelling, the important thing to remember is to offer a clear adult speech model so that your child is able to hear the right way to say the target word. Please don't worry about asking your child to repeat the word from your model. It's always good to give them a little bit of time to see if they would like to copy, but if they don't worry. And don't expect immediate changes with their speech. This will take time, but the important thing is that you continue to offer the clear model so that they continually hear the correct way to say that target word.
So I guess the take-home message from that is to make sure you repeat the word correctly a few times for the child to hear how it's supposed to sound. And remember that we don't necessarily expect the child to imitate the word correctly after we model it. That wraps up the part about speech sound disorders. Thank you for listening, and I hope you guys have learned a few useful tips. I'll hand it back to Janice, who has a quick quiz set up. Janice, you're on mute.
I will put the link on the chat so that you can click on the link and we have some questions there. Here you go. Wow, we have 17 players already.
If anyone's having trouble, just unmute yourself and let us know, and we can talk you through it if you're having trouble. The idea is just to put that into what's in the chat. If you go to chat at the bottom of your screen and you click on chat, you can see the message from Janice, and you just click on that and that will open in your internet browser. And then you put your name in and you're ready to play. What are our numbers like now, Janice?
We now have 23.
Right, that might be close to what we could expect. So,
I've actually lost the system.
Oh, okay, Lionel.
I can see all of you, but I've lost everything else. I can see you outside of my screen, but I've lost everything else.
Can you, if you just bring your mouse cursor key down to the bottom, often it just like pops up at the bottom. There'll be security, participants, polls, and chat. Can you see that, Lionel?
I've come up with post attendee Zoom. I don't know how that happened.
Oh, that's your that's going back to your internet browser. I think you might have clicked on that. So maybe you need to click back on your Zoom, like your Zoom window.
Oh, the Zoom link. Open Zoom, yes. Back to meeting. Here we go.
Great. There you go. So now if you go to chat at the bottom, and you click on chat, you'll see the last message from Janice. And there's a link there.
I can see the link.
Yeah, click on the link and then that should open another window on your computer that will ask you what your name is. And then that lets you go into the quiz.
This is just weird. It's taken me to White Pages.
Oh, that's different.
says the White Pages location. The White Pages would like to know your current location.
Oh, that's bizarre.
It's very bizarre.
We might have to send you the quiz to do later, Lionel. And maybe I can type it to you privately. As a message, okay, so that the others can get started.
It might be a Mac problem, is it?
It could be.
It's alan.coodlake@optusnet.com.au.
Sorry, I missed that. What was that?
No, I don't think that was to you. That was someone. Right. Yeah, I don't know what happened then. That was someone talking. The quiz hasn't started yet. Yeah.
Yep, I'm going to start the quiz.
Yeah, okay.
Oh.
So the first question is, which comes first developmentally? Oh, some people have chosen babbling, but the correct answer is cooling. So the first stage is cooling, and then babbling, and then baby will be able to speak. The next one. When do children usually say their first word? Yeah, most of you got the correct answer. It's around 11 months, like around 1 year old. So our next question is, what is speech sound disorder? Most people got the correct answer. So speech sound disorder is when children cannot produce sounds correctly by the expected age. Which one is the most common type of SSD? That means speech sound disorder. Yep, most of people got the correct answer. The most common type of SSD is phonological disorders. Which one or which are the best way to help children with SSD? This one might be a bit tricky because the answer is all of the above. So they can seek speech pathology services, and we can do some modeling, and also we can encourage children to participate in the conversation a bit more. So the last question is, after today, can you think of any children you have met that might have a SSD? Oh. I can see that some of you have chosen yes. Maybe it's time to encourage them to seek some advice from the speech pathologist, or you can try some strategies that we have recommended. Okay, so who is the champion? Oh, Catherine is the champion. Congratulations, Catherine.
Well done, Catherine.
Is this Catherine from the program?
Yes, it is.
Oh, cheating. The real champion then is whoever was Mouse.
Yeah.
Who's Mouse? Who'd like to own up to being Mouse?
I was Mouse, Jamie.
Oh, Jamie. And EM? Who was EM? Anybody? You have to unmute yourself. EM.
That was me.
Oh, yay. Well done. Who is it? Is it Remedios? Hello. Well done. That's exciting. I'm glad it wasn't, because the next one's me. So I was like, oh, when are we going to get to a volunteer? So congratulations. Yay.
Well done. So I think that's it for our presentation today. Do you have any questions? You can just type on the chat, or you can unmute yourself.
Maybe we can turn to stop sharing, and then I will remove Spotlight.
Yeah, so there's no questions in the chat there, but thank you. It was Janice and Natalie. It was amazing. Okay, so we've got we have got a question here. Sorry, Catherine, and then I'll let you talk. But first, I've got a question here from Grant. Where do stutterers fit into this this diagnostic kind of speech issues?
I can answer that.
Okay.
It's not something that we were going to focus on for this particular series of presentations, only because stuttering is not as common as speech sound disorders, language disorders, and literacy difficulties. You're probably going to encounter those way more in the classroom than a kid who stutters. But stuttering is a different process. So it's actually a different, what we call range of practice area for us. It's not to do with speech, and it's not to do with language. It's to do with the signal from the brain going to the muscles. It's more related to speech in a way, but it's really about people who stutter have a difficulty getting the message that they have in their head translated into the appropriate sounds. So it gets stuck at a certain point, or the feedback loop, which is what the thing that we have, all of us have, which is when we're talking, we can actually hear what we're saying. For people who stutter, that feedback loop is interrupted. So as they talk, they're actually not getting that feedback loop at the right time, and it causes them to repeat themselves or to block or to prolong what they're saying. So it's a different kind of speech sound. It's a different kind of speech, not speech, communication difficulty, and one that's way less common than the other things we're talking about. But nice question, Grant.
And Catherine, did you have a question?
Yeah, in some language alphabets, there's different sounds. I'll use the example, say, with Irish. The TH isn't in the language, so therefore people have difficulty pronouncing with the TH in Irish. Therefore they say tree, they don't say three. And I would think also in Vietnamese, there is also sounds that are not in the English language and not in the Vietnamese language. So that's not a difficulty, as a child have never heard those sounds. How do you cope with that?
Do you guys want to talk about this, or do you want me to take it over, Janice and Natalie?
I think if children really do have speech sound disorder, and the disorder will appear in both language, but not just one language. And sometimes they might just don't have that knowledge to produce that sounds. So maybe it's great opportunity to like introduce that sound articulation or the placement to the child, so that it might help the child to learn to produce that sound.
So I think, Catherine, what you were asking was if it's their first language is Irish or Vietnamese or whatever, when they come to learn English sound systems, they'll need to actually go through the process of learning them explicitly. It won't be as automatic for them to produce it. They will do what you described. So if an Irish person is learning a different phonological system or a different sound system, they will replace the sound that they're meant to say with what their system does more naturally. So if their system does not have a TH, and if they haven't practiced that in between their teeth, they will do whatever is closest, which, as you said, is the T. And so that we will see happening. When they come to speak English, it will obviously affect their ability to convey their message. So we might need to treat that particular sound and give them strategies to actually produce the correct sound in that instance. Typically though, kids who come here and acquire, kids who've learned a different language and they come to Australia or an English speaking country before the age of 9, they don't tend to have too many difficulties getting the sound system. Their brains are still plastic and malleable enough to actually absorb it. But we definitely see that in the adult population way more. And some people do come to us for what's called accent modification or speech therapy as an adult to help them with certain things like that, like those sounds that because of their home language is influencing their speech production in English.
Thank you. That's
all right.
Very good.
And that follows on, there was another question from Grant about do speech disorders vary with other languages other than English then? So if you were being a speech pathologist in Vietnam or in Egypt, would you be dealing with different kind of disorders?
Well, yeah, I mean, those languages have different sound systems. So in English, we have about 46 sounds all up. There's only 26 letters of the alphabet, but when you include all the different vowels that we can make and the different diagraphs, there's actually about 46 sounds that we produce. Some of these sounds don't occur in other languages and other languages have more or less. So it will be different. They will have different kind of errors. There's sounds in many African languages that we cannot produce. They're click sounds and sounds that are made at the way back of the throat. And Arabic languages have those like sounds that we don't really know how to produce very easily. French has that, that I can't do it. But all sorts of sounds that we don't have in English that might present differently in that language. So you'll have to do different things for those sounds.
But would they still have like the disorder where the child doesn't say the whole word or misses the first letter or something?
Yep. They'll either have substitution where the sound is replaced by another sound, or they might have some sort of deletion. So the last sound is gone or the first sound is gone. They'll have similar kind of patterns.
Right. I think that's what Grant was asking, but I'm not sure. But it was interesting what you answered as well. That was all very interesting. And then I thought, oh, hang on a second. Does anyone else have any questions? We're coming up to 2 o'clock now.
Dimitri, I'll just answer your question about stuttering. Yeah, stuttering in the early years, as in before preschool, is really the only time it can be treated, in the sense that we can get rid of it. If it's not addressed in those early years, it is hard to treat, and it's something that we manage later on in life with different strategies. But there is something called the Litkin program, which is very heavily used in Australia. It was made here in Litcombe in Sydney, at the University of Sydney campus. And it's got, actually in speech pathology, that's probably the thing that has the most amount of evidence, is the use of that Litkin program. But it's for preschool kids that stutter.
And I know a success story. A friend of mine's child did the Litkin program, and there's no sign of stuttering at all now. And it was quite severe at age 4. So, it was very effective, just out of interest, anecdotally.
Maybe next year we might do a stuttering presentation if everyone is so interested.
Yes.
That was very good. Thank you.
I just had one more question about resources that we might be able to get to explain to children who are learning English as a second language how to pronounce those English sounds that they have trouble with, the TH and the sh and that was a question from Joy. So maybe it's something I can take offline with you, Milan. There might be something that we can share with the volunteers. Some of them would be having to do that quite often, I imagine, depending on which schools they're at. So,
Yeah, I'm sure Janice and Natalie can make something up. I guess the biggest thing, I mean, if there really is an issue in that and it's profound, we'd want the speech pathologist to be doing it, but definitely we can give tips of how to stimulate that sound or explain it to a kid. Like, for example, TH, we make that sound by putting our tongue between our teeth and we blow air. And so if they sort of know those little tips at least, that might be enough to help that particular kid.
And Joy's putting her thumbs up there, but it is always the expectation of our volunteers to discuss with the educators as well. So I don't imagine any of our volunteers would go in expecting to be able to do some speech therapy with the kids, but I think Joy was more just asking in a general way. And occasionally there might be a child that you could add that extra support to, and maybe they're already in speech therapy, but if you're having to describe it, knowing the kind of the technical way or the speechy way to do it is often very helpful. So we can send a visual that pretty much has like a cutout view of all the sounds and how they're made. That could be good.
And that might be enough for the volunteers to help them explain the way what to do with their tongue and lips.
Because from my experience, that's where it's quite important. It's like put your tongue here or put your tongue there. So wonderful. Okay, well, I won't keep everyone any longer. We have one more session next.